Welcome to Home Ed Looks Like This, and I am a mum of 4 children, but I now only home educate 3 because my eldest has gone off to college. So this video is all about history, and I absolutely love history. I enjoy incorporating it into pretty much everything we do. I just think it's a fantastic subject right across the broad spectrum. So, and I believe this purely because you can't build a better future unless you've studied the past. I have a little quote that I am going to read out to you now that I have prepared. Those who cannot remember the past are condemned to repeat it. And that was by George Santayana. So as I said, you can't build a better future without understanding and studying the past. And by that I don't mean the generalised whitewashed version most people get taught. Not that learning from a British point of view or an American point of view isn't important, it's just as valid and just as important, but it's also important to ensure that you also look at every situation you're learning about from a global perspective as well, to get a well-rounded view on the topic. And then you can build that evidence, weigh it up and put it all together to form your own opinion. And the most important part of that is not only discovering where our ancestors went right, but also where they went wrong, because we learn the most when we make mistakes, and that's just as valid as growing up as it is when we're children. You can't recognise progress without having had the opportunity to follow that process through, because that's how you see the gradual progress. And it also allows you to see recurring patterns and then apply that to modern day situations such as modern day global politics, modern day sociology, modern day psychology on a mass level, the current climate, cultures, and so on really. So I keep knocking the table, so if the camera wobbles, that's why. I'm a very tactile person, so my hands move around an awful lot, so I do apologise, because the camera will probably shake quite a bit. So in our family we absolutely love history, and we love bringing history to life. So from a family perspective, we do an awful lot of history. And I mean, maybe that's because we're involved in various groups such as the Historical Combat Company, and I will provide a link for that in the description because they're well worth checking out. And with them we do various events for the public, so we're up at Newcastle Keep quite a lot. Earlier this year we were involved with Jorvik, the Jorvik Fighting Festival, and we also host combat camps at Century Circle in Northallerton, Yorkshire. And again, that's well worth checking out as well, because the camps are open to the public, so you can come along. The children can join in various living history activities. We have a lot of living history stores there, people walking around in period costume. And we also do live medieval armoured combat, which is great fun to watch as a spectator, but it's also great fun to be involved in. And I am a marshal with the IMCF, the HCC have put us through all that. And my partner fights, and my eldest daughter is actually a marshal as well. I sometimes wonder who the nutty ones are, the fighters or the marshals. So the IMCF is the International Medieval Combat Federation, and it's a global company, hence the title international. So our training is all legit, and there's a lot of red tape, so everything's perfectly safe, and the children get to experience real living history in a safe environment whilst having immense fun and spending a lot of time with their friends, because we can be on camp for weeks and weeks and weeks at a time sometimes, so they get to spend that time with their friends, learning as a group of friends, getting very hands-on with history. But we don't just, while we're at camp, we do other topics as well. We do studying. We do continue their education there too. The other benefit of history is how it links in with other subjects as well, and also how it influences most areas of life too. For example, history is you can incorporate history with your geography studies, because you can look at how people migrated, and again sociology there too, how the planet and continents split up. There's so much really that you can bring into geography in that respect. Climate change, it's also a part of history how humans have contributed towards that. Then you've got the arts. Art history is very, very interesting and fun to learn because it follows the trends of each era. So you can see the progression of the styles, the fashion, the artwork itself, and it's obviously very individualistic. So they get to see a lot of varying aspects of history that way too. And art is also a great way to teach history. And one example I've got here to show you is when we actually did a bushcraft session outside in nature. We had a fire, we made moulds out of clay, and it was air dry clay. So I'll just show you that. I don't know if you can see that clearly or not. So we made impressions in the clay, and then we melted pewter over the fire and poured it into our moulds to set. And it didn't actually take that long to set. And it was a great fun day. The children were very hands-on and they got to learn history in a hands-on fun manner. Other ones we also did on our bushcraft day were some Thor's hammers. Absolutely love them. So as you can see, there are lots of ways you can incorporate art and history together as well. And then you've got the historical nature of mankind. You've also got culture and cultural history. And now that ties into so many subjects, from sociology to psychology to geography again, and the migration of people, the historical progress of them cultures, where they are now, where they started off in the past. And a lot of cultures out there have such a rich tapestry available for you to study, and it can be so eye-opening as well. Again, you've got religious history, which can tie in with culture, and it can also be independent. And that again can be very, very interesting because obviously we've got things like the Crusades, which was very influenced by religion at the time. And so you've got the invasion of Normandy and so on. Really, there's all sorts really that you can tie in and bring together when it comes to history. And you can really, really get the children's imagination fired up and going. At the end of the day, mankind started somewhere and it's followed a progression route right the way through to the modern times. And following and learning about that journey can actually teach a lot of empathy, understanding, seeing things from different perspectives, and it fosters a deeper respect of differences too as a result. There's so much that the past can teach us about the future, and there's also so many transferable skills there too. As I say quite frequently in my videos, if there's anything you don't know, you can learn it with your child. And despite the fact that my partner and I both come from families who are interested in history and fostered that interest in us, there's still so much that we are still learning as individuals, as well as facilitators to our children's education. Education never stops. I'm hoping I'll carry on learning for the rest of my life because it's what makes life interesting, isn't it? And I want my children to have that same drive and motivation to keep learning for the rest of their lives too, because I think it's a lifetime journey. It's not a journey until you hit a certain age, leave education and get a job. Education continues your entire life. And if you can foster a love of education in your children, they will continue to learn, grow and develop as people throughout their entire lives too. As I said earlier, we both grew up in families that were very, very into history and fostered that love of history within us. And we actually met at a Viking living history event that was held in Formby by Mark Ollie. And Mark Ollie is definitely worth checking out as well because he does events around the country too, and they can be highly educational. So the more you learn about history, the more you realise how history still affects and has an influence on modern day times and society. It helps you form opinions based upon evidence, logic and knowledge. I also think it encourages children to ask why. It also encourages them to think outside the box and to think about situations from multiple perspectives, which is what we all want our children to do as they grow up into adults. And obviously we incorporate a lot of global history to ensure that that multifaceted viewpoint is also encouraged within our children. So when you're teaching about history, encourage them to ask questions, encourage them to follow threads of interest and trains of thought, dig deeper, research for themselves, and form their own opinions based on what they've discovered and found out. These are all crucial skills that employers and universities and even colleges look for. Another way we bring history into education with our children is through stories. And history incorporates a lot of stories, myths and legends. And they can be great for really capturing a child's attention, firing their imagination, and they can be sat there gripped on your every word. One of my favourite ways of doing this is around the fire, and we get together with a large group of friends, we all camp together, we all do living history events together, and of an evening, once the public have gone home, we'll light the fires, we'll all sit around it and we'll tell stories, sing songs, and we'll talk, but most of it revolves around history naturally. So all the songs will be like sea shanties from the past or other areas in history. The stories will be various periods throughout history, or they could be myths and legends, and the children will sit there enthralled, enjoying every word while they're eating the s'mores and toasting the marshmallows for the s'mores. And it's brilliant to see how much they actually take in. And I didn't realise it until a while ago when somebody mentioned Beowulf, and my little lad knew the story off by heart, and I was like, I just looked at him and he was like, yeah. I heard it around the fire at camp and I loved that story, and it had stuck with him, and I hadn't realised because he'd been snuggled into me, getting toasty by the fire, all relaxed and chilled, eating his s'more, and I honestly hadn't thought he'd been listening, but he'd obviously and clearly taken in every word that had been said and retained that information. And that was what sparked my idea about doing our Tales Through Time segment on our YouTube channel. And as you can see, we get dressed up for them and we tell various stories from throughout the historical period, and hopefully that will inspire yourselves to introduce more historical based stories at home. And if not, feel free to use ours because they are perfect for any poetry time and story circle that you have. And I suppose, it can be a time saver too. As I said earlier, I will pop a link to the Historical Combat Company below because they've also just started offering an art award, and the art award is based on crafts throughout history. So you will actually cover similar crafts to these. There's weaving, illuminated letters, and lots of other crafts available throughout the programme. They guide you through it themselves, telling you everything you need to know and do with tutorials for each section. And they're always on board to help out, and at the minute it's only £5 per child as well, which is an utter bargain considering it's a GCSE equivalent. So if you're a home educator, you love history, you love art, or rather your child does because that's also important, we're quite child-led here. But yeah, they would be brilliant for you to follow and a brilliant opportunity for your children to do as well. We're actually starting it next week with Anthony. Tyler's already done it, and we're doing it with Anthony, and I will be recording that process too, and I will upload that. So hopefully you'll all join us for our Art Award unit study. I think we're doing the bronze level to begin with Anthony. It's going to be very hands-on, very messy, which we love here because I think children should always be messy because that's when you know they're having the most fun, and when children are having the most fun and at their happiest, they actually learn more and they retain the information long term. I can't stress that enough. At the end of this video, I'll actually share some photos. I'm going to have to dig them out, it will take me a while. I'll share some photos of what we've been up to with the children on a historical basis. So you'll see some photos of us at combat camp. I've got some of Tyler actually marshalling there. I've got some of the fighting taking place as well, because it's all done in a safe way and it's great fun, and it keeps you fit as well, gives you something to do. We've all got to have a hobby. Ours are just a little bit different to other people's. Even the children get involved, to be honest. We just put photos of Anthony learning his archery, and fighting with boppers. I've actually got a bopper to show you here. This is what we call our boppers, and these are training swords, and they are weighted. Anthony's actually getting a new one hopefully soon, when we can get them through, because with COVID everything's taken forever to come, so we've had to put off the order. But as soon as we can get him one, he'll be getting a shorter one, which will be a lot easier for him due to his size, but we wanted to make sure he was absolutely dedicated to it before we paid out the kit. So this is what we use for soft kit fighting and training, and obviously it teaches a lot of discipline to children. When we're using sharp things, you'll probably hear us say to the children, you know your weapon safety, because they immediately go into responsible mode and they start behaving, listening to every word that we say, and they know when we're in that mode and they're in that mode that it's for everyone's best interest. So yeah, I'll pop up some photos of things we've been doing like that, different events we've gone to around the country. I think I've got some there from Mark Ollie's markets as well, so I'll put them in too. And just different activities that we've done that have been of a historical basis as well. So my best advice is to really just dive in and start enjoying history with your children. There's lots of resources out there as well that you can use. So resources that we use are documentaries, and documentaries can be absolutely fantastic, and you can watch them from multiple viewpoints as well. You will find that, say you pick a topic, one country will have one perspective, another perspective, and so on and so on. And somewhere in the middle, once you build it all together, you get to build a picture and then form your own opinion. Books are amazing, and you're probably seeing from our background shots that we have multiple bookcases that are evidently overloaded. We've also got boxes of books that I can't find anywhere for, because we don't have enough space for any more bookcases. I'm actually looking for a bigger house at the minute, because I want my own library schoolroom separate from the dining room, just so I can get tons of bookcases in there and get all my books out and on bookcases properly. We are moving house, so obviously we're packing things as well, so there's lots of boxes around anyway for that. But yeah, so resources, books. We have a great library at our fingertips at home, thankfully, because I've always had an interest in history. So obviously I've kept all books that I've been buying since childhood, ones that my parents bought for me, ones I bought for the older children and are now recycling again. I never part with books. I absolutely love my books. I am a book hoarder, and I am proud of that fact. Biographies are brilliant again, because they give a personal perspective on certain situations. They go into great detail about people, and they are fantastic for that. Movies that are based on fact are brilliant. So dramatization of real life events, they can be great. There's loads out there when it comes to history. You've got all the ones about the world wars. You've got ones about earlier periodic history. So yeah, movies are great for that, because there's such a wide and vast array of options available for you when it comes to dramatization of real life events, whether it's movies, TV, film, so on, you get the idea. The internet. So the internet is literally a world of information at your fingertips. If you don't have access to the internet for home education purposes, we do still have libraries, although at the minute with COVID everything's quite difficult in that respect. Museums, again, COVID restricted at the minute, and it is quite infuriating from a home educating point of view, because legally we're allowed to continue with our education and continue using those services, but because of the COVID furlough scheme, it's more financially viable for them businesses to take furlough than it is to just stay open for a small home ed group. Heritage trails, and we're actually leading a heritage walk for teenagers through Preston, either next week or the week after. We're still working on our date for that one, and we're going to be going around and discussing different areas of the city and historical fact about that, and then we're going to be doing one in Liverpool as well. You've got the National Trust and English Heritage. You've got centres like Yarrow and York that you can go to and really get hands-on with history there. I mean, even the smells are very, very realistic there. But it's well worth going. It's one of our favourite places to actually go and explore with the children. And again, my kids love horrible histories. I'm sure you've seen so many home educators talk about horrible history, so I'm not going to go on about that one too long, but it really gets my youngest one fired up and enjoying the history lessons. Again, science, okay? A lot of people panic when it comes to science and history, and I've got a fantastic resource here that I've been dying to show you all, and it's called Ancient Science, and it's by Jim. I'm not even going to try and pronounce Jim's surname, because I probably won't do it correctly. I'm terrible with names, I really am. And this one has a different science experiment for different periods through time. Let me just show you an example of one we're going to be doing soon. Here's one about the different constellations in the past and how they navigated by it, and how you can recreate that as an experiment at home. Let's see. Again, making your own compass, so that ties in with physics, obviously. Making your own paper. How they kept time, hieroglyphics. There's all sorts in here, really, all sorts of different experiments and activities you can do at home with the children. I mean, it even goes into the Greeks' invention of the diving bell, which was how people originally were able to be submerged underwater for quite a period of time. And it's got an experiment that you can do to recreate that method. So this is a great book for incorporating history and science at the same time into your study unit. There's quite a few in here we're going to be doing as part of our Egyptian study unit. And so you will see this book quite a lot in our feed over the next few months, I guess. But it's well worth investing in your own copies, so check that out. Another thing I love about facilitating history and unlocking the past is how it does foster empathy and understanding towards differences. So when you're more aware of the battles that have been faced in the past, I think it helps you become more aware of modern day trials as well. And like I said earlier, it does help you to think about situations from multiple different points of view. So like I mentioned earlier, studying history involves a lot of transferable skills, such as researching skills, logic, critical thinking, analysing information, thinking outside the box, evaluation, and these are all skills that universities and educators look for, and employers. So learning about history is actually far more than just remembering dates and occasions that happened throughout time. It's much more than that, and it's deeply rooted into everything that we do today. So learning about that can only be an empowering process. It also encourages your children to make connections. Because they become aware and are able to think of things from multiple viewpoints and take into consideration multiple facets of information, it allows them to understand that there's a multitude of different factors behind every occasion in history, which is an amazing skill when transferred to modern day times and situations that they face in life. So yeah, I'm not going to waffle on any longer. Thank you for joining us today. Don't forget to check out all our other videos, and I hope you have as much fun as I do incorporating history into your home ed journey. Thank you.